Welcome everybody, François for my role-playing channel, and I'd like to ramble about something. I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, that famous role-playing game that's following us everywhere. Even though we're not playing this game, we know it's part of the folklore. Okay, we're into it, want it or not. And I've made some reflections about this game, but well, this game, no, it has been through so much different versions. So, is there a version of Dungeons and Dragons I would still play? You know, having to come up on the table with a game that has that name, okay? Because I got rid of my 5th edition stuff recently. I don't know if I made a video of that, but I really tried to love that game, but give it some love, and didn't made it through me. I don't like the game that much. Okay, while the game was there, while we were playing, it was all okay. Okay, we're having fun and all of that, and stuff happens. And yeah, job done. But I think you can agree on that. The fun has still to be there in between games. Is if you're a game master, when you open up a book, must be a pleasure, which was not. Okay, every time I opened a 5th edition book, I was not feeling well. Okay, I didn't like what I was reading, and every time I was saying, well, there are other games that can do that better. This is my opinion, because there's a lot of D&D fans out there, and I can understand why they can love this game. Okay, that game has good qualities, but not for me. And pretty much the only game that is still on my shelf, a game I have talked about recently, this is 3rd edition 3.0. And to tell the truth, if I ever come back on the table with a game that has Dungeons and Dragons written on it, that will be the 3.0 edition, right? I have the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, the Game Master Screen, and that's pretty much the game I would keep. I've told in an earlier videos many arguments on why this one, but I feel that it's, the mainframe of the D20 system that feels house ruleable a little bit more than what came after. You can house rule everything you want, but I think it's good when a game encourages you that. But on the top of that, it doesn't mean that I hate Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I do like to have games with class levels, okay, hit points, okay, all that you can find into Dungeons and Dragons, okay? But there are so many games that kind of brings you those elements in a different way, okay? It's some different house rules that use, okay, that is inspired by the original game. So I will talk to you about the games I would use in order to emulate different periods of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, we all know that 50 years ago it was very low fantasy kind of. Okay, it was more gritty, and now on we have super heroic high fantasy, tough to die characters. Okay, it's different from every versions of Dungeons and Dragons brought a different flavor. In order to emulate BX, BCMI, and even older versions of the game I would use, a game that I have shown on RPG, by the way, is a French role-playing game called Carveillant. That has an English version on Drive-Thru RPG called Gallant and Bold. It's from one of my favorite role-playing game author called John Grumpf. And and he has made a pretty easy to manage game with details, and that pretty much feels like those old versions. Okay, what is different about the game? Well, what makes it different? Well, your basic stats, the 6 basic stats, you have to have low stats because you have to roll with the D20 equal or more than your stats, or you are against your characteristics. Your experience points, you have some control on how to manage them. It has different effects. Okay, you can keep them to go up a level or use them during the game to gain some advantages while you're playing. It feels a little like, Star Wars D6 skill points. That's where you could keep them to raise a skill at the end of the adventure or get some extra dice during play, but with little more effects. It has a lot of cool rules about managing a lot of stuff. Okay, when you're praying God, when you pray your God, even if you're not a cleric, and when you stay, you make a camp in the wood, what could possibly happen, and it's pretty well placed, and I haven't had the chance to play it, but by reading it, I felt that this is the game I will go with to emulate that period of Dungeons and Dragons. When it comes to advanced Dungeons and Dragons, first or second edition, without a doubt, I would go with Castles and Crusades. I was a player in a short campaign a while ago. I used to have the books. I gave them to someone, Sebastian, if you're watching. So yeah, but it was in order to maybe at some point buy the newest version of the game. Just because I don't have any plans to play it, but if I have a feel and I want to go into that type of flavor, Castles and Crusades without a doubt would be the game I would use, because it has that flavor, but maybe some more elegant mechanic to support all of this. Well, I already told you about the D3rd edition, so if I want to get back into the D10-20 glory and toy with all of that, D20, Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition would be my choice, though I have no plans to running it. Okay, I don't have a space in my life to go in with such a crunchy game and toy with that, but I still keep it, somewhere I have a feeling that it might come back, and at the same time I'm keeping them because it reminds me of a very happy moment in my life in role-playing games. Okay, all the fun I had when this game came out, all the excitement that came with it, that's why I'm keeping it. And finally, if I want to emulate what came after 3.5 up to 5th edition, okay, high fantasy with lots of cool powers, well, I'll go with another game I've talked about in the first few videos of this channel, and the French role-playing game that I don't think will ever come in English, but it's called Chroniques Oubliées. Chroniques Oubliées is awesome, okay, because it's easier to manage than those newest games, but it doesn't remove what make your character cool. They have cool moves that they can do, that they can trigger. It's really easy to manage for the game master and the players. It was first meant to be an introductory game to introduce you to role-playing games, but while looking at it, back at it, that game has been around for 10 years. It has a lot more to offer. They've made a great job into making a quite precise and complete role-playing game. Okay, it's not as detailed as Pathfinder, I admit it, but you don't lose much. Okay, you have your characters, you have all your cool stuff going around that you can trigger while having the basic mechanic of what Dungeons and Dragons is all about, letting you making judgment calls, rulings that won't break the game, that will just add to the pleasure of playing this game. You have a lot of options into one book that you can plug or unplug on for whatever you need. Okay, this is a pretty complete game in one book. Okay, they made a great game about this. And this will be my go-to game for high school presentation, since kids nowadays like to have superheroic type of character. It's a little more gritty than 5th edition, but not that much, okay? There are lots of options that the character can use in order to help them during the game. So yeah, Chroniques Oubliées will be it. Right now they kind of finished some sort of a crowdfunding of a 2nd edition of the game. I haven't backed it, okay, because right now the 1st edition really pleases me a lot. I feel that I still have a lot to watch into this one. Lots of stuff to try, okay, and that game won't come out until summer 2024. It was very expensive, okay, since I'm in Canada, and ordering a book from France cost way too much. So I wasn't going into the 2nd edition. I felt that, okay, they talked about what was different, and a lot of stuff might be interesting to the present game, okay, but not enough for me to spend my money right now. So the 1st edition Chroniques Oubliées, because we can call it that way now, well, is self-sufficient and work pretty well with what I need to do. I have pleasure doing it. I have pleasure watching through the book, and I think it's important. So right now, I don't think I will ever follow Dungeons and Dragons in the future, okay? Any new things that might come up from their publisher, because they're going in a direction which I don't have any interest into, okay? They can do whatever they want. I know what I want to get from an experience, D&D type experience, which is an experience based on games that are house rules of what came out 50 years ago. So what I want to show to the players, I will share those type of games. Show them that it's not because the name is not on the book that it's not D&D. This is D&D just as another name, and this is a house rule of something that was created 50 years ago. Being official about a game doesn't mean that is the current version of it, okay? We have to admit there's no official version of D&D, okay? We all run on different house rules of it, house rulings that were created throughout the decades, and the main publisher, Wizards of the Coast, choose one way to present the game, okay, when they publish a new version of it. But Chroniques Oubliées, it's D&D, Cœur Vaillant, it's D&D, Castles and Crusade, it's D&D, it's all D&D. So I'm more into showing the kids that you can choose what version of the game you are comfortable with, and not be afraid to use it because the name is not on it, okay? So yeah, so right now the only version of D&D I'm keeping is 3.0, because if I want to do a D&D type of game, well, I've did you a list of that, and I'm pretty much happy with this. So that was my ramble. François Letarte for my role-playing channel, and up to next time, I hope you have as much fun in your life as in your games. Goodbye.